Nobody's ever found a gene for ADHD. Nobody's ever found a gene that says, if you have this gene, you're going to have ADHD.
So ADHD isn't genetic. Let's ask a neuroscientist.
No one has ever found an ADHD gene that says, if you have this gene, you have ADHD. And that's true, because people found 27. Like most human traits, ADHD is polygenic, which means that it doesn't come from a single mutation on one gene, but from a lot of different mutations on a lot of different genes, and from the complex combination between those, which is why it's complex. Now, there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about what Dr. Gabor Mate says and about this whole predisposition genetics or trauma thing. So let's go into that. A genetic predisposition is when you have a mutation in your DNA that makes you more likely to have a certain trait that will be activated in certain environmental conditions. That means that if you never meet those environmental conditions, the trait will never be activated. This is the case for example, certain cancers or for sunburns. Then you have traits mostly determined by genetics. So these traits will appear following mutations in your DNA regardless of the environment you grow up in. For example, eye color. ADHD falls under this category. And finally, you have genetic per-environment interactions, which is absolutely all of human traits because there is no single human trait that doesn't interact with the environment. Even height or skin color or hair color have an environmental component that modulate how they appear. Through studies, we can separate how much genetics or the environment contributes to the appearance of a trait. And thanks to those studies, we know that ADHD has a heritability that is between 75 and 80%. The higher the heritability, the higher genetics contribute to the appearance of the trait. To give you a comparison, IQ is around 50% of heritability, while eye color is 80% of heritability, which is the same as ADHD. Does that mean that eye color comes from environmental factors? No, it's mainly genetic, just like ADHD. However, under certain environmental conditions, your eyes can get lighter or darker compared to their baseline color, just like your ADHD symptoms can get worse or better with certain environmental conditions. Finally, all the studies done on childhood trauma show that ADHD diagnosis does not increase with childhood trauma, but the severity of symptoms does. The conclusion is that your DNA determines whether you have ADHD or not. It's like a switch that is on or off, and then the environment controls the volume of the symptoms. And yeah, many times ADHD is associated to trauma because people with ADHD are also more likely to live through trauma. But basically, the fact that nobody has found a single ADHD gene doesn't mean that it's not genetic, and this is a gross oversimplification that is very dangerous.